Good morning, everybody. Welcome to beautiful Bullseye Country Club. If you haven't heard, there is an election coming up. I know that's a shock to some of you, but that's okay. I know Scott Crew didn't know there was an election, but that's too bad. But before we get started, again, we want to be very informal. We want to give the candidates an opportunity to share some remarks, and then there will be time afterward to do open questions with the candidates. And I'm also sure that if you want to talk privately with them, I'm sure they'd be happy to do that. Just go out on the first tee, hit a ball or whatever, and talk politics. But to honor America, before we get started, we like to, if you would help join me in the Pledge of Allegiance this morning, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And I'm just going to move that because it's going to be... Also, I'd like to, again, my name is Craig Tim. I manage public affairs and government relations for Domtar. And again, really pleased to be here to help lead this discussion this morning. Want to thank our sponsors, especially want to thank the Heart of Wisconsin Chamber of Commerce. They are celebrating 70 years, so congratulations to them. Our legislative breakfast sponsors include Heartland Farms, Verso Corporation, and Domtar, and all three of those are proud to do that this morning. What we'll do then is what I'd like to start with, and we'll just start and go around. If you want to you don't need to come to the mic or anything, but just quickly identify yourselves, who you work for, just for the benefit of the candidates. So we'll start there and head that direction. So.
John Wilson, Boys and Girls Club. Kent Anderson, Boys and Girls Club. Brian Stephen, National Partners. Sean Becker, Wood County Sheriff's Department. Gordon Crowley, Centergy. Bill Manning, Wood County Board. Doug Mahan, Wood County Board. Jason Gutenberg, Wood County Planning and Zoning.
Go ahead.
Nystrom, Grand Rapids Chairman.
Scott Fruit, State Representative. Nick Burris, I work for the legislature.
We'll head back to Rob.
Rob Ames,
John Hiller, I'm retired.
Tara Ham, Wood County Florence.
Marty Burkhardt, Domtar.
Samantha Cool, Dunbar.
Scott Stevens, Wisconsin Theater Council.
Mark Spears, Small Business Development Center.
Craig Bernstein, Mid-State Technical College.
Krista Kuhn, Heart of Wisconsin Chamber of Commerce.
Dave Gorski, candidate for the 72nd, and also homebound instructor for the School District of Wisconsin Rapids.
Carrie Fay, excuse me, candidate for the 70th District, and I also work at the Ho-Chunk Healthcare Center in the Purchase Preferred Care program.
Okay, thank you, everyone. And also, just so you know, obviously this is being filmed for Wisconsin Rapids Community Media, and we thank those folks for being here, filming that, getting this message out to the folks that in the greater central Wisconsin area. So what I'll do is I'm going to just start with my list, and we will start, I will introduce the candidates. We'd like to have you come to the podium just so we can capture it on the tape and also with the sound. We'll start with Wood County Sheriff. So John Hiller, you start us off this morning, please. If you would just take a few minutes to introduce the crowd to you, and then Sean, you'll be on deck.
Yeah. How did I get this honor? Probably because I'm the only one from the north end of the county. Yeah, I'm John Hiller. 59 years old, so I'm bringing 59 years of experience into this race. I spent 20 years on the Sheriff's Department, retired about a year and a half ago. Before that, I worked out of state in the city of Indianapolis as a police officer, and I have 4 years of military service. My whole campaign, because I did come out of retirement, was I had people approach me and they said they wanted change within the Sheriff's Department. So as the people came towards me, I did weigh it out and decided I'd put my name in to see if I could become the sheriff of Wood County. I have good competition. I have great respect for Sean. No matter who wins this race, myself or Sean, you're still going to have a good sheriff. My change comes down to, my major change comes down to the jail. I personally feel, as do some of the people I've talked to, that the jail is a issue, it's a problem, needs to be addressed. And that, probably everybody knows, deals with the recent deaths that we've had in the jail. I think maybe more could be done to correct that problem, and personally I think maybe more should be done immediately to correct the problem. Like I said, I'm bringing some life experience, I'm bringing some common sense back into the race. My brother, who's my visitor in the back, we just wanted to make an election campaign that was halfway fun as it is informative. I'll leave it at that. If there's any questions of me, I'll answer those. Remember, I'm setting the format. I'm first.
Thank you, John. Yeah, well, we'll be able to do questions and answers after the presentation. And welcome to Southern Wood County. Also candidate for Wood County Sheriff, let's welcome Sean Becker. Good morning, Sean.
Well, first, thank you to the Chamber for the opportunity to speak this morning. Thank you, John. I have the utmost respect for you as well. A little bit about myself. The first thing I always talk about is my family. Once we knew that Sheriff Reichert was going to retire, I had to take that decision back to my family, decide where does that fit in our life. All right, because I know running the campaign and being in the political side of things really isn't about the individual. It's about what you bring to the table, what you represent. And I'm very proud of my family. And the first discussion came down with my wife. And if I didn't have her support, I wouldn't be standing here in front of you. So we had that discussion. Once Tom made his decision he wasn't going to run for sheriff, we talked about it, where did it fit in our life, and it fit in our life. It fit in my wife Julie's life and our kids' lives, Jordan and Caitlin. So I have that foundation behind me as we move forward in the candidate. And it even went beyond that with our family. Great support from my father, my in-laws. So we move forward. Now a little bit about my career. I've got about 25 years of law enforcement experience, and most of that's with the Wood County Sheriff's Department. I've had many different levels of leadership. I started out as a deputy, became a shift commander, field training officer, accident reconstructionist, member of our SWAT team, patrol sergeant, investigator sergeant, patrol lieutenant, and now patrol captain. The last 8 years I've been an administrator at the Sheriff's Department, overseeing the whole patrol division, which is about 50 full and part-time deputies. So with that being said, this fit in my professional life as well. The next step, what is the next step to get involved with in our department? So I want to move the department forward, take on the initiatives that we started quite a while ago as far as mental health, the drug problems, our jail. John brought up a good point. We need to make some changes in our jail, and we have been the last 3-4 months. I'm a very big advocate of mental health, and we do have a mental health provider in our jail, providing 40 hours a week for our inmates that are suffering from mental health issues, illnesses, and addiction. And as your sheriff, if I'm your next sheriff, we're going to expand that into AODA, services for the inmates, because once they get out of jail, we have to make sure that we connect them with services, otherwise they're going to have that high recidivism rate that we have right now. So we need to connect them with services once they get released, but have the services within our jail. And I believe that's going to help with the issues that we're having right now. Furthermore, our jail was built in 1988. You can consider that old. I don't. That's the year I graduated high school. So take it for what it's worth. But we're making changes back there. We're always looking for safety changes, and we're doing that, and we'll continue to do that. So those are probably the biggest things that I'm about, the jail, mental health, drug issues, and definitely being fiscally responsible. As your leader, sheriff, you need to be fiscally responsible. You can't spend, it's your money, it's your taxpayers' money, and I've proven that over the last 8 years being an administrator at the Sheriff's Department. So thank you again for your time, and be looking forward to some questions.
We're going to move to the State House in Madison. I'd like to introduce candidate for State Representative Carrie Fay. Grabbed you right as you were eating, sorry. So, Carrie Fay, candidate for State Representative.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to thank everyone for being here, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'm very grateful for it. And as he said, I'm Carrie Fay, and I have a experience being a former Marine, 10 years on the Milwaukee Police Department, and also 9.5 years of doing more investigations for the Ho-Chunk Nation on the executive side and the legislature side. And in that position, I had to learn all their laws and acts that they had in place in order for me to conduct thorough investigations. I'm also a certified mediator, and I've also done facilitations. So I feel that with my background, I'll be able to take that with me to Madison and work proactively to bring good things to happen for the people in this particular district, number 70. Furthermore, the things that I stand for are funding public education, along with the UW system and a free 2-year technical school, and supporting getting the MA expansion so that the cost of health care will go down, and opening Badger Care so that the 847,000 families that don't have insurance will have insurance that is affordable for them. Because as it is right now, the healthcare field, the insurance companies are very expensive. It's almost like families are paying 2 mortgages. And the other things that I would like to see happen are statewide broadband access for the small businesses and farmers, and a student loan forgiveness program. I have a daughter who's in school, and she'll be graduating soon with a bachelor's degree in chemistry with a minor in biology, and hoping that she goes on to be a dentist so that she can bring it back to the community. So that's why we need to make sure that we fund our education so that our kids can get the high quality teaching and learning and bring that back to our communities, back to our families, for them to be able to succeed in life. One of the main reasons why I ran was because the laws of the the laws that protect environment were getting lowered. And we need to have water. We need to have clean drinking water. And I want to leave a legacy behind that I put forth major effort to make sure that we all have that. Now the question is, ask yourself, what type of legacy are you going to leave behind? Are we going to continue to lower environmental laws for corporations that come into the state of Wisconsin? I really don't think that Gaylord Nelson would appreciate that, since he put a lot of effort into the Clean Water Act and the Clean Air Act. So we need to make a decision on what direction Wisconsin is going to go. If we do not have clean water, our tourism income revenue will come down. We have people who come from different states to come up here to go hunting, to go fishing. They bring their families here to go camping, use our lakes, our ponds, and enjoy the scenery that we have. So without water, Wisconsin's not going to have that. So we need to stand up and make sure that we protect the environment. And that's all I have. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Carrie. I'd like to introduce incumbent State Representative Nancy Vandermeer. Good morning, Nancy.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us on this nice, crisp fall morning. As I was introduced, thank you. It was mentioned that I'm currently serving, and I'm at the end of my 4th year. And I was happy to bring a lot of good things to Wisconsin this last session, as well as the previous one. I see Representative Krug in the audience. I'm sure he's going to talk a little bit about the airport expansion that we were very happy to support, to bring some good economic momentum into the area as well. But the things that I would like to further talk about are some of the legislation that I was very happy to support this last session. And the reason why is I think it lifts up all Wisconsinites. It's good for our entire state, whether we be rural or urban. Of course, my focus is always on rural. I also chair the Rural Development Committee. And in that committee, we take a look at bills that access K-12 education funding, healthcare, workforce development, and all those issues that are really, really important, near and dear to our heart, to strengthen our rural areas. So I want to talk kind of the bigger picture first. And one of the things that I think that isn't being mentioned a lot right now is the Wisconsin Healthcare Stabilization Plan. And with that program, with that we passed, we knew that Washington, our legislators in Washington, were struggling with making any type of reform to the Affordable Health Care Act. So what we did this last session was through a process of reinsurance, and I'll keep it simple because we have a lot of other fine speakers this morning. But what that allows us to do through that process of reinsurance is, along with a partnership with our federal government, to significantly lower the premiums that our Wisconsinites are paying on the marketplace for their health care insurance. And we will see that coming up for them, that significant reduction in costs in the next year, 2 years, and it will continue to go down. And I want to point this out. I think Wisconsin is a leader in a lot of these areas, and we were the one of 4 states to enact this type of legislation. Secondly, another bill that went into law that I think is very important is to protect your tax investment. And it's called the REINS Act. And we were the very first state in the country to enact that. And what the REINS Act simply says is if one of our state agencies needs to spend $10 million or more, that request has to come back to the legislature. So that way, all of you who elected us have a voice at the table on how we're spending your tax investment in the state of Wisconsin. And, you know, I've talked about more of those fiscal items, but I want to also mention, and probably Representative Krug will as well, our historic investment in K-12 education and important sparsity aid as well. And that really helps our rural schools so that we're making an investment in our future workforce and creating that opportunity for all the kids in Wisconsin. And so moving on a little bit further, I want to also share with you really what motivates legislators. A lot of times, it's not necessarily dollars, it's cents. It's things that will improve life for Wisconsinites. But then further on down, you know, it really helps all of us. And there's a couple of programs that I want to mention that we worked on this last session. First of all, the foster care program. And that was convened through a task force with Representative Patrick Snyder. And many of you may be familiar with him. He's really our representative to the north here. And because of his own personal experience, his wife is a nurse, he wanted to create some reforms in our foster care system here in Wisconsin. We have 7,500 children in Wisconsin's foster care program, and that is growing. So we need to address that because many of those kids age out of the system, and we want to make sure that those who provide maybe that temporary home or that home until they get to be 18 have the best opportunity for when they leave the system of foster care. And that was what we created with that. He brought all the stakeholders to the table, parents, professionals who deal in that area, and we were able to make some significant reforms to allow for easier access and care of children in foster care. Another set of legislation, and I hope maybe Scott, you'll expand on this a little bit too, so I'll leave the door open for you as well. But as all of us know, we have an opiate addiction problem, not only here in Wisconsin, nationwide. And through the last 3 sessions, we were able to make some significant inroads, and that was through the work of Representative John Nygren. And it's because of his own personal experience with addiction in his own family that it really motivated him to take those steps forward. And we've been able to pass significant legislation for law enforcement, for treatment and diversion programs, for the application of Narcan in various sites like schools, for our law enforcement to be able to help people with overdose in the workplace or in the schools. And it's been very significant. This session, we continued to pass, I think, the number 17 bill in the heroin opiate prevention education program. So I look forward to working with that continually in our next session. And finally, I want to share with you, as I said, a lot of the work that we do comes from our own experience. And I want to share this anecdote with you, and it is a personal one. You know, I talked about Representative Nygren, Representative Snyder, and how we try to bring the best we can to our Wisconsinites. And in 2017, my mom, she was a senior, she turned 90, and her health began to change. At the same time, in the legislature, I was authoring the Enhanced Nurse Licensure Compact. And please recall, back the last session, you may have heard me speak about it in other venues, but I had authored the Interstate Medical Licensure Compact. And that's to not sidestep any of our rigorous medical practice laws, but it's to create an ease of licensing for our doctors to get to work here in Wisconsin when they transfer from other places. That can be a workforce issue as well, so that we have great health care in our rural areas. But at any rate, the Nurse Licensure Compact is very similar to that. What it does, it creates a compact with 26 other states, and those nurses in those states have a reciprocal license with Wisconsin. So it helps along the border states, helps with the delivery of telemedicine, and we all know that's very important as we move forward in our medical settings nowadays. Our nurses in our state, we have 112,000 nurses, and they deliver a great amount of our health care to our Wisconsinites. So at any rate, my mom's health was changing. I'm working on this bill, and her and I both are kind of on this joint journey together. I'm an only child. We're very close. We were in business together. We were in the automobile dealership together. And as things were changing for her and I'm working on this bill, we'd be together in different healthcare settings, whether it be the ER, the ICU, long-term care. And my mom was always a good advocate for me because she opened the door for conversation. And she'd say to the other nurses, "Do you know my daughter? Do you know what she's working on? Do you know what she does?" And I had some great conversations with these very articulate professionals in our state. And after a while, they'd come to know us well, and they'd say, "Are we going to get this bill passed?" Because they were enthusiastic for it too. And very ironically, my mom and I spent our last day together October 28th of last year. That was a bill that was very close to my heart. And as I said, she knew that I was working on this health care measure. And on November 2nd, that bill came to the floor of the Wisconsin State Assembly. And it was passed unanimously. It was just 4 days after my mom's passing. It will always be one of my most cherished memories of working and serving the people here in the state of Wisconsin. And as I said, that bill was passed unanimously. And I want to share with this as well. Over 90% of the bills that we pass on the assembly floor in the state of Wisconsin are done bipartisanly with our legislator partners on the other side of the aisle. So that's what I want to continue to do. I also serve on the Ag Committee. My husband's a dairy farmer. As I said, I chair small business or rural development. And I'm also vice chair of Veterans and Military Affairs. So I look forward to working once again in all those areas and continuing to serve and bring good things to all our Wisconsinites. So thank you once again.
Views on clean water.
Thank you for listening, and I'll look forward to future conversations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could ask questions.
After, we're going to have, out of the respect for our candidates, we want to get through the candidates, and then you will have a chance to ask that. Good question. We're going to move to the, we're going to stay in the state representative in the great city of Madison and move to the 72nd district candidate, David Gorski. Good morning, David.
I want to thank the chamber for inviting me. I think this is my 4th time, so breakfast is always good. Yeah, just a little bit about me. I grew up on the south side of Milwaukee in a Polish neighborhood. It was kind of like the code language. All the adults knew it, but the kids didn't, except for the lawyer's kid, because they were smart enough to teach their son Polish. But we, at Easter time, we made our own Polish sausage, and we took it to the church to get blessed. That's how Polish of a neighborhood we were. And it was a pretty solid neighborhood that kind of went downhill as I got older. And at that time, the Boys Club was my refuge. I had my name in the cornerstone there and started attending when I was 7.5 years old. I was in the archery club, Lads of Magic, the Magic Club, the Keystone Club, that was a community service club. We had a archery team, and we had a BB range and a 22 range. We had a wood shop, we had a library. I was on the swim team. I started my wrestling career there. They sent me to a wrestling camp in the 8th grade. Paid off because I was 47-0-1 in the city of Milwaukee, a 3-time city wrestling champ, and I ended up taking 5th. But and I've always been a leader. I've been on the student council ever since the grade they had it. I was an officer when I was in high school at Milwaukee Tech, a school of 2,300 students, which used to be a pipeline to UW Stout, by the way. But now we're only graduating 130. We used to graduate 505 from Milwaukee Tech. So if I'm elected, I'd like to see if I could do something about that. But I worked in Bolivia. I worked in Chile as a physical education instructor and a counselor, so I have a pretty wide view of the world. I was hired by Nakusa School System in 1992 as a middle school counselor, and I did that for about 6 years, and then I became the at-risk and AODA coordinator, which is, AODA is really drug and alcohol abuse prevention. I wrote altogether for at the at-risk program and the and drug and alcohol prevention, about $600,000 in grants, which are programs I had to administer. So I'm an idea person with follow through, you know, and I guess that's why I want to be a state representative. But my vision for the state of Wisconsin is different than the way we've been going. Because what I hear about the historic investment in public education, $600 million, and that's great. Tony Evers recommended that, and our state government followed through. But still, after that historic investment, according to statistics from the Legislative Fiscal Bureau, we're still $153 million less than when Scott Walker took over. And let me tell you, as a person that worked in public education, I've seen Walker's policies hurt public education. I've seen us lose programs. I've seen class sizes go up. And the biggest thing is we don't have a teacher shortage, folks. We have a teacher exit. If you go to UW Stout, if you go to River Falls, if you go to Eau Claire, you know, there's opportunities for you right across the border, and people are going that way. We have a net negative migration of college-educated people going to Minnesota, because I just believe Minnesota is doing more for their people than Wisconsin's doing for our people. Number one, medical marijuana. Both Illinois have it and Minnesota have it. Now, how many vets could be helped by that? Many. I knock on doors, and I talk to vets about this that are in pain. I've talked to 3 people in particular. You can just see it on their face, how much pain they're in. They wish they didn't have to take opioids, but they do. You know, in states where they have medical marijuana laws, we have a 25% less problem with opioid addiction, something that we should have done. This is something that helps so many people of the state. Why haven't we refinanced student loan debt? And I know my opponent will say, go to SoFi, walk in the bank. Well, SoFi is picky about who they take, and you can't defer your loan. You can get in trouble with them. But in the state of Minnesota, I have a friend that has a loan there for 3.25% he refinanced. What if we did that? My opponent's going to say, well, it's going to create a big bureaucracy. So what? I don't care if there's an office of 50 employees. There's $24 billion in student loan debt in this state that are affecting 1 million borrowers. You know, that's money. If you were paying $600 a month at 8%, you get that down to 4%, which I think we could do. Then there would be more money in the economy, more money to buy a house, buy a car, start a family. You know, why didn't we do that? I don't think there's any good excuse for not doing it. The other thing is the health care problem in this state. I'm glad Nancy mentioned some programs. I think we're behind the eight ball, though. We should have been doing this all along. Tony Evers is talking about going in with drug buys with other states to bring the price down. We have to end the drug price gouging in this state. It's ridiculous. I talked to so many people, they have health insurance, and they're still going bankrupt because they still owe $500 a month on their prescription drugs. You know, what Minnesota did is they did a review of all their insurance companies. They did create the exchanges. And also they took the $1.3 billion of their own money back into their state. And across the state for the ACA Silver Plan, it's significantly less in the state of Minnesota and has been ever since the ACA was passed. So maybe we saved a few bucks on our property taxes, but we've lost thousands because we did not do the right thing. And so I'm somebody that feels like, and I like what Nancy said about helping everybody in the state. That's what our vision should be. We should help as many people as we possibly can. We need to put our students with debt before our bankers. I'm sorry, but we need to do that. Well, you know, we need to put our vets ahead of the pharmaceutical companies. You know, so that's where I'm coming from. I am also concerned about our water. Since Scott Walker took office, 700 new bodies of water have been added to the impaired list, and those are statistics from the DNR, and not even all the lakes were tested. So we're going backwards on water. Think about all the private wells that have been polluted in this state with nitrates and with bacteria from mainly cows, you know. And I'm not anti-agriculture. I think we need to help agriculture introduce these practices, no-till agriculture, cover crops, bumper strips, lower application of nutrients. These are all things we can do. Instead of spending $3 billion on a gamble at Foxconn, instead of spending over $100 million fixing their roads, where we could have fixed roads around the state, maybe what we could have done is help our farming community introduce these practices. And I know Nancy's her farm is an excellent example. Her farm uses these practices, and that's fantastic. I'm glad. But we should help all our farmers do this because our water is precious. Look at all the property value that has gone down in the town of Rome because of the phosphate runoff situation and the nitrates in the water. You know, it didn't happen overnight. It isn't the fault of the Republican administration this time around, though they didn't help much, in my opinion. It was something that was coming for a long time, but it's something that we need to address. So, you can tell I'm a fiery guy. That's why I'm in this. I ran last time, and let me tell you, it's a lot of work. I have to give up time. Students that I work with, homebound students, so it hurts me economically, but I am passionate about being a different kind of representative, one that answers your phone calls, one that works with your mayor and your county board members. I'm going to be full-time. I'm not going to work another job. The pay is $51,000 a year. That's a lot of money. How many of our residents here in the 72nd would like to work for $51,000 a year? I know if you work at the mill, you make that kind of money, but a lot of our people don't. So if you vote for me, promote me, I'm going to be the kind of person, I'm going to be engaged with the community. I'm going to be engaged with our other community leaders. And I am an environmentalist. I am a true supporter of public education. Just going to say one more thing. I know I'm probably running long here. But I just want to tell you this. In the city of Milwaukee, the Wisconsin Parental Choice Program, you know what that program was? It was originally created to help black and brown and poor white kids in the city of Milwaukee get a better education. But you know what's happened after 27 years? We have the worst black test scores in the country as compared to whites, and some of the worst black test scores overall in the country. This has been happening for years, folks. We are stealing the education opportunity of black and brown children in the city of Milwaukee. And where have our elected officials been? And I'm talking even on both sides of the aisle. This drives me crazy. The Claro Mohammed Islamic School in Milwaukee from 2011 2017 had, you could count on one hand the kids that scored proficient in reading and math. I called the DPI. I asked them, why is this school still open? You know what they told me? We have no mechanism for closing down these parental choice schools for lack of academic performance. You get me in the state legislature, I'm going to make some noise about that. I care about those kids. We can't be taking their education away from them. And that's what we're doing. So, okay. Thanks for listening. I know I gave you an earful, but you sense my passion. Send me to Madison.
Thank you, David. Dave, there's your. Staying in the 72nd District, incumbent Scott Krug.
Well, good morning, and one thing I've always said about Dave is I appreciate that passion, man. It's well received, and it's keeping us fighting as hard as we can on our side to get the actual story out to the folks in the 72nd District. So, a little bit of a precursor on where I'm going to go with this speech. Things are good in the state of Wisconsin. That's where you got to start, right? So let me tell you how good things are in the state of Wisconsin. Is we actually have one of the most struggling industries in the state of Wisconsin, our paper industry. It's been struggling for decades. I grew up here. I was born here, raised here, lived here in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, through all the job loss and all the transitions and ownerships in our paper mills. And now, in our booming economy in the state of Wisconsin, paper is expanding. You know, if the paper industry in the state of Wisconsin is expanding, there's a lot of other things going on that are good too. So ND Papers in Barron is a shining example of why we need to keep our manufacturing ag tax credit viable in the state of Wisconsin to keep bringing jobs into our state, because the jobs that they're bringing into my district and to other districts that represent paper are monumental to the growth of our economy as a whole. $189 million investment going into Barron from ND Papers. I don't know if anybody can tell me, but I'll ask, because there's some people here who have been around a little longer than I have. When was the last time a paper company relocated or bought a mill in the Wisconsin Rapids area and actually added jobs? That's right. It's never happened before. Every transition in ownership we've had in our paper companies, from the time it consolidated all the way through Verso, New Page, you know, wherever we're going with it, there's always been job loss associated with it. Not anymore. Also, for the first time in the last 40 years in the state of Wisconsin, Green Bay Packaging is building a new paper mill in the state of Wisconsin. $500 million investment there. It's amazing when you focus on the things that you're brought up on and the things that you value, and you take them to the legislature and work on them and they start getting accomplished. That's why you keep going back. And that's why I'm asking for your support for me to go back one more time. Let me tell you a little bit about my background originally. I started in law enforcement in the late 90s after college. A couple of you guys here have been in law enforcement. I was on the road for a whole 2 years. I couldn't hack it. I give you guys a hell of a lot more credit than I could take on that one. Because I saw, and these guys will tell you even more, I saw the crazy things that people would do to each other over and over and over again. And it was hard for me to accept, and I couldn't take it. I couldn't hack it on the road. So I figured I'll do something even safer. I'll go work in the jail. That's a lot better, right? Holy moly. Wow. When you get into the jail system and you understand the things that you saw out in the community that were happening, and now they're concentrated all in one building, all together, everybody 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, building contacts with themselves to become even better and more empowered criminals, it's not a great system. So I started to work as the discharge planner on the social side of the programming in the jail to try to figure out, is there a way that we can keep these guys from coming back all the time? Had some real good success as a discharge planner here in Wood County, and I'm hopeful our sheriff candidates will accept that concept moving forward. I think it's a very viable concept to hire an individual dedicated to the jail to help people with their financial situation, their employment situation, their family situation, making their recovery whole so when they walk out that door, it doesn't revolve again. We went from 80% to 16% on recidivism in the years that we ran the discharge planner program here in Wood County. Saved $1 million in jail bed days, just because we took some time to be preventative and to get ahead of the problems. So I take that knowledge and experience I had as a discharge planner, take it to the legislature, and work on those issues every day. We work on family issues. I've been on children and families and family law the last few sessions. I've been on the jobs in the economy committee before. I work really hard in the public benefit reform committee as the chairman to make sure that all of the aspects that go into making an individual holistic and getting back on their feet in society are achieved through policy from the state level. Because when those individuals come back, one of the biggest things we're working on right now is our workforce shortage, right? We can't find enough people. A lot of the employers in this room will tell you that we're having a hard time getting applicants to actually apply. That's why we need to get everybody back off the sidelines and back into the game. So one of the things we're really working on are reentry programs. Trying to make sure the individuals who are on the wrong path for a little while can get back on the right path. To make sure that we're dealing with their AODA issues and their mental health issues, and make sure that we have employment skills in the pipeline for them to learn to become better employees. Because over and over again, and Gordon will probably back this up too, over and over again, and when I talk to employers, the two things they want from an employee are dependability and reliability. Somebody that's going to show up and somebody that will actually work. We can achieve those things in the policies we're working on in the state of Wisconsin. Job skills and job training for those skills after we find dependable and reliable people, those are things employers can add. Those are where we go to customized employment training programs, and back to the day where the private sector reached back into our schools and said we need a few dozen of these folks to come train for this. Our job is to make sure that people are available. Our job is to make sure that businesses have the ability to succeed. The state can't guarantee that success. We need to rely on the private sector to do a lot of that work too, and they've been stepping up. In the legislature, besides those things to try to make people a little more holistic and their lives a little better, I also work on things that are locally important. I live in the town of Rome. I am super excited about all the things we've been able to accomplish in the legislature that help the town of Rome, because as Rome goes, so goes Adams County, and as Rome goes lately, so will Wood County. And it's been exciting to work on a bill to protect the trap shooters' long-term existence out in Rome for the world-class facility they have there. It's been amazing to work with Sand Valley and the TIF bill that we created out there so they can create 600 jobs in Adams County. Back when I started in 2011, if we had 6 jobs in Adams County, people would have been excited. We're at 600 jobs at Sand Valley right now. And it's not just the jobs at Sand Valley that make a difference. It's the investment they make back into the Wisconsin Rapids area that's even bigger. One business in particular, Sand Valley spends $100,000 a year on baked goods from one of our bakeries in Wisconsin Rapids. So when people tell me all the time, well, it's just a golf course and it's just for rich people and the airport expansion is only for these giant jets, it's poppycock. It is a direct correlation to the success of our community and the small businesses that depend on it, and the jobs that those small businesses create and maintain in our community. If they're spending $100,000 a year on baked goods at one business, can you imagine what else that's bringing into our local economy in the Wisconsin Rapids area, into our Wood County tax base that's going to start funding some of the things that have been on the bucket list for years? That's why that's important. That's why the airport expansion that we got passed in the state budget is monumental, a $4 million investment into expanding a regional hub at some point in the future here for all traffic to come more to Wisconsin Rapids. Not to Stevens Point, not always to Mosinee, not to Madison, but right here in the Wisconsin Rapids area. That creates opportunity. That creates new businesses. That brings people with money to our community to see how great things are going so they can invest, so they can bring their ideas from around the country to central Wisconsin. So we can have even more economic success. So we can have more families stay here. So we can stop the brain drain that existed when I first got elected and add to the brain gain that we're having right now. Beyond economic issues, I'm super proud of the $75 million that we got for the UWSP to build their new science chem building. The first new building on that campus in 40 years because of the work that we did in Central Wisconsin legislative delegation to bring that to our area, to draw more students into those fields in Central Wisconsin, to create more of a STEM concept at UWSP. We helped them get differential tuition to help get rid of the bottleneck of upper level courses. We wanted to make sure that our education system is great, so the $636 million we did invest puts us higher than Governor Doyle was in his last state budget for state funding. And those papers from the Fiscal Bureau are sitting right here. They're in my hand. You can see the difference. That investment is real. That investment brought us to a higher percentage of funding for our schools than we had in 08, 09, and 10. We're now funding 64.6% of our schools are now state funded. We're almost at our 2/3 funding goal that we've had for decades. Governor Walker has promised to get us there in the next legislative session. I know we're going to be able to do that. Our ACT scores, our graduation rates, our schools in Central Wisconsin are some of the best in the state. Bar none, hands down. I want to talk about transportation a little bit before we go. I've been blessed to have an office in Saratoga this time around, and in front of my office was a $3.2 million expansion and redevelopment of Highway 13. Beautiful new project, $3.2 million. We just finished the Highway 54 development from Port Edwards all the way out towards Babcock. Brand new Highway 54. County Highway Z down in Rome, being totally rebuilt. The Devil's Elbow. If you've been down to Devil's Elbow, it's going to lose a little character, but it's going to be a lot safer. Highway 21, all the way across the eastern southern part of my district. Highway 21 being resurfaced through Coloma. New bridge build on over the interstate over there. It's just, I can go on and on and on about 21, 73, 13, 54, give you every single number that we have. Highway 80, Highway 10. All of the roads that we've worked on the last 15 years here in the state of Wisconsin are finally putting us in a better position than the rest of the state. I understand there's challenges with transportation yet, but they're not so much here. We're going to make sure that we're doing even more in our transportation funding for our counties, for our towns, who got a little bit of a bump this last session, but not enough. We're going to make sure that now that we have budget surpluses every year, that we invest them appropriately and get those dollars out to our communities so they can spend them where they're needed. I wanted to address a little bit of the medical marijuana issue that was brought up a little bit earlier. So, the last 4 years in the state assembly, I've been a leader on CBD oil and trying to find a way to make sure a derivative of the THC plant can be used for medical purposes. We've reached that goal. With the passage of our industrial hemp bill, now we can actually produce, sell, and consume CBD oil with THC in it in the state of Wisconsin for the first time ever. When I was chair of the Children and Families Committee, we heard this bill. We had 200-some families show up with their kids who were all suffering from major seizure disorders or major neurological disorders, who we knew firsthand would benefit from CBD access. That's something that's not lost in the legislature. Nancy talked about 90% of the bills being passed are bipartisan. CBD oil is unanimous the last 4 years, every time we tweak it to make it a little bit better. And the best part about our CBD oil bill is that any changes that come in federal law that will allow us to expand it will automatically be accepted by the state of Wisconsin. So you've been hearing rumblings the last few weeks about President Trump removing some restrictions on medical marijuana and certain aspects of it. That'd be for CBD oil. That's a major step forward. A medical marijuana bill will come before the legislature this session. If there is enough control and it's done the right way, I think we can find a way forward to expand access for that. But I can guarantee you right now, and I'll tell you right to all of your faces and right to our cameras, do not expect Wisconsin to ever become a recreational marijuana state. That is a step too far. That is a bridge we are not going to cross to put psychoactive materials and substances in the hands of anybody who wants it is absolutely ridiculous. I don't think it's something we should ever consider, and I would never be willing to go there. But when it comes to medical, and we can find the right purpose and the right distribution model for people who are in pain, absolutely we got to get that done. So you'll see that come up this session. I think Senator Teston's working on a bill right now, actually. So look for that hopefully soon, right after the election. Other than that, we're going to keep working on big local issues. We've got some more big things coming from Sand Valley. We're expecting to see Course 4 started in the next year. We just heard that the release for Course 5 has just happened as well. So at some point you are going to see about 1,000 jobs at Sand Valley. That's amazing. to think of what's going on in Adams County that's going to benefit southern Wood County and the rest of my district. So there's going to be good challenges to come along with that. Future expansion in Rome is going to require some sewer access. We're going to need to do some municipal help to make sure we can fund those projects. We're going to make sure that if we have a need for expansion on quotas for facilities that can, serve liquor or alcohol, because they're going to be big resort type areas, we're going to do some targeted growth in those areas. We're going to make sure that the economic development of central Wisconsin is absolutely number one priority for your delegation in Madison. So with that, I will be quiet and let you guys finish up and ask some questions when we're all done. Thanks, Greg.
I want to give you just a quick one on the next, our next presenter, not necessarily her, but the office. A lot of times when you go to vote, you get this big long list of people and all that stuff and all these different titles and all these different offices. And a lot of times some of those races and some of those offices and those positions are what's called down ticket. In a presidential election, obviously the focus is on the president and probably a U.S. senator, and as we work our way down. But don't ever underestimate how important these races are, including the next one. The next, I'm going to introduce Dara Ham, candidate for coroner. And you're wondering, coroner? Yes, we do elect a coroner in the state of Wisconsin. But I can tell you, folks in the medical profession and the folks in law enforcement, the coroner is a key position for those, and really does quite a service to our citizens. So, Dara, you're up for coroner position.
Hello, thank you for having me here, and thank you for the wonderful introduction. As mentioned, I am running for Wood County Coroner. I am actually your current Wood County Coroner, finishing my first term, so ending my 4th year. This job is a job that most people don't want to talk about. There's not often pleasant things to discuss, but really this is a passion that I have. This job encompasses so many different aspects that people don't think about. It's helping people, it's the medicine, science, and it's also finding the truth, finding the answers. And being there for a grieving family in a tragic time. So there's many different aspects to look at. Kind of to back up a little bit, my background has been in a couple different areas. I went to school and studied chemistry, biology, and criminal justice. Ultimately ended up working as in a volunteer aspect as an EMT and first responder for roughly 18 years. As I was in school, I kind of went back and forth. So a totaling of 18 years I volunteered doing that. I did that with Wood County Sheriff's Rescue, where I had the opportunity to be on many calls, work with the coroner that was on staff at that time, and just really have an open experience to things. In addition to that, I went to school and I work as a first assist, surgical tech medical assistant. So I work in the hospital field. I see a lot in the hospital field and the medical field and have a really good understanding of that. That's kind of my background. So 4 years ago, I took office. One of the things I feel very important with the coroner's position is to have that medical background. I'm pursuing a certification in medical legal death investigation, which is not something that the state requires. However, many people in my position, many people in the community that we talk to, feel that importance of the medical field background and also that investigative aspect, particular in medical legal death investigation, is very important. So what is the job of the coroner? Our job is to ultimately determine cause and manner of death. I'm not there to investigate a scene. I'm not there to say, this is what happened. I'm there to say, this is how this person died. This is why this person died. I draw from many different angles to figure that out. We're looking and working as a team with many areas. Over the last 4 years, I've really developed relationships to be able to work as a team. I work with law enforcement on a regular basis, with the investigators that are there, with the patrol officers that are out there. I have been mentored by other coroners, medical examiners throughout the state through the Wisconsin Coroners Medical Examiners Association. as well as developed relationships with forensic pathologists, with toxicologists, with the state hygiene lab, all of which I utilize to get those answers and determine that cause and manner of death. So it's a very complex job. All of these things are also governed by our state statutes. When the coroner is called, the things that we need to look at and do from ins and outs are all dictated through state statute 979. So it's not that, we're just elected and we get to do what we want. There are governed things that we have to follow and certain circumstances that we have to be involved in when we go to different calls, different deaths. One of the things that I mentioned is very important is to be there for the families. So although our job is to determine cause and manner of death, I want to do that in an accurate way. I want to do that timely, efficiently, and also be there for the families while I'm doing that. Sometimes we don't have our answers right away. Sometimes it does take a long, drawn-out process for us to get where we need to get because we feel the need to do an autopsy because there's something just not right. In the state of Wisconsin, we have a shortage of forensic pathologists. Actually, that's nationwide. There's a shortage of forensic pathologists. Sometimes it takes longer to get those information back because we're utilizing those expertise, that resources to get there. Now, with those relationships that I've developed with those forensic pathologists, I have had the opportunity to kind of keep things fiscally down as well by utilizing their expertise, sending them records, going over calls, but not necessarily needing an autopsy. That helps keep the budget down and also gives us those answers for the families in an accurate manner and efficiently. So there's different aspects we do with our job that really help in multiple different directions to give us the right answers and what we're doing. That's part of where my passion comes from is because I want people to have that truth and I want to be able to help them through that process. I could go on all day about what I do, but like I said, it's not necessarily a pleasant topic to discuss, and so I don't want to get into too many details. I'd be happy to answer any questions out there as we move forward here this morning. But thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk, tell a little bit about what this job is and why I want to continue to do this job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank all of our candidates and wish them all the best as we get close. What we have 11 days or whatever it is now.
11 days, 13 hours, and 6 minutes.
But who's counting? Right? And by the way, the polls open in Wisconsin at 7 a.m. and close at 8 p.m., which is different some states. And I'm sure all of you are registered, but which I find really, I work in a lot of different states. In every state, it's hard to keep it all straight. But what I really like about Wisconsin is as long as you can prove that you're a resident, you can actually register to vote right at the polls. That's not the case in some states. I know our sister state to the north and to the east in Michigan, you have to have about a month wait. You literally can't, if you're not registered by a certain date, you cannot vote. I just think, and it's odd, I kind of forget about that because when you grow up in Wisconsin, you just like, you can actually go cast your vote as long as you just go through the registration process. We are open for the question. I didn't even get it out yet, but I think I want to ask, can you pick them up? Do they need a mic at all?
I probably don't.
Okay. I just want to, for the benefit of the audience, but go ahead, Gordon Crow.
I just have a comment, and as I think you know, I came out of political office 100 years ago, and one of the reasons I got out of office was the turn that politics have taken in America, and I just want to encourage our sheriff candidates. We need to package you up and send you to Madison and to Washington, D.C. to teach people about the collegiality, the friendliness, and the ability to get along with people who you oppose politically. Thank you both very much for that.
Now let's rip each other apart.
And I know, Bill, you had a question, but your candidate actually had another commitment, so I don't know if you want to, you can certainly still ask your question and go right ahead. I just wanted to, I didn't mean to cut you off. I wanted to make sure we could get through, but go, if you have a question, go right ahead. Yes. I can do that. I don't, would you like to ask a question to?
No, I was just wondering what her view was on that.
Okay. So I'm sure you'll catch up with her then. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, sir. I'm going to hand you the mic.
Thank you. You know, so much has been said about student loans. My daughter and her husband both went through college, had student loans, 4 years college. In 8 years' time, they completely paid off their loans. I think it's not so much a fact that they build up these large amounts as they have to dedicate yourself to paying off your loan just like you would something else. So much of our youth and our think that they need to have every new snowmobile, motorcycle, whatever, everything else that us older people earned as we saved our money for. It makes it difficult. So I really have a difficult time when people look to reduce student loans or forgive them. They earned their college, they got their degree, they're making great money, they can pay their loans off. So I guess that's more of a comment than a question to anybody, but.
Thank you. Any other?
I did mine.
And I want to, before I ask for more questions, just something to put on your calendar, and if you need any specific information, Gordon would be a great source. I can also talk to it, but in February, annually, a team of business, students, individuals from central Wisconsin, central Wisconsin being basically north of Wausau all the way down through to Adams County. We invade Madison for a day and a half. We take people like Nancy Vandermeer and Scott Krug, and we tie them to their chairs, and we talk about central Wisconsin. So you'll see more info coming up February 26th and 27th, if I remember that correctly, 2019, which sounds totally strange anyway. Will be Central Wisconsin Days, where actually you will have a chance to go on teams in the Capitol, to meet with state representatives from both sides of the aisle. We're looking at some speakers. We're going to have folks from the administration, and again, the administration may be a new administration, we don't know. But just jot those dates down. You'll see more. It's February 26th and 27th. Centerg.net. Centerg with a C. And if you're from other areas, the chambers there will also have those dates, and they will know those. Any other questions at all? Yes, sir. Speak into the mic like I forgot to do.
Will do. I'm sure we won't get an answer. There's a lot of smart people in this room, and that's why I wanted to ask. A lot of people talk about healthcare and the concerns with healthcare nationwide. I think Carrie mentioned that people are paying a second mortgage for this, and I can tell you I pay a second mortgage just for our deductible. So obviously those costs are high. A lot of the answers we hear are increased government subsidies, Badger Care, but that's still tax money helping a problem. The last stat I heard, and I don't know the statistics, I'm not up on this, but hospitals lost like $1.2 billion in non-payment, and I think that was in, Scott, was that in a quarter? Or was that in a year, last year in Wisconsin? Yearly last year. That forces insurance costs to go up to cover that. So I guess in my mind, and this will create probably a bigger debate, everyone gets health care. Some people aren't paying for it. So how do we remedy that problem, whether it's in the state or nationwide? Because the people that are paying a lot more, and people that don't pay for insurance still get health care. So isn't there a better way? I always think if it costs $1 million to pay for health care, it still costs $1 million no matter what. But if we funnel an extra $500,000 to insurance companies, isn't there a better way to do this?
Are you picking this up fine? Okay.
I think that's a great question. I think one of the biggest things that we can work on in the state, and I think something the federal government's got to support us in doing, is trying to get healthcare providers to actually show us what the cost is, right? If I'm going to go in for a procedure, I need to know what it's going to cost me. I need to be able to shop that with different facilities instead of at the end of the procedure and at the end of the time with my insurance company getting a bill afterwards saying, well, guess what? It cost you $684 for this shot. In healthcare, you have to see it as a consumable product, right? Just like any other product that or service you're going to consume, there's got to be a sticker. You got to know what the cost is going into it, because when you don't know what the cost is going into it, you got to do it, right? Healthcare, you got to do it regardless. But if you have an option, like we do now, with Gunderson coming to Adams and with Riverview Aspires here in Wisconsin Rapids, Marshfield Clinic here in Wisconsin Rapids, Marshfield Clinic and Ministry up in Marshfield, when we have these options here in central Wisconsin, you should be able to shop your healthcare and figure out what the cost is going to be and where. That would make a huge difference if people actually knew what they were stepping into. On the backside of it, you're right, because one of the big challenges we have in the state is we actually take state GPR money and give it to hospitals and ERs at the end of the year. We say, okay, you're not going to get paid. We know this. We know you're going to have a loss. So every state budget, we have a $30 million price tag for disproportionate share hospitals who aren't getting their fair share from people who consume their product. So your tax dollars are already going for it. When we talk about Badger Care, we make sure that everybody at poverty rate and below is covered. But above that, we started making sure that there's some buy-in. You have to have some buy-in. If you're going to make good medical decisions, there's got to be some skin in the game. So that's what we do with our Badger Care program, is we have certain levels. When you're above the poverty rate, you got to chip in a bit. So you're actually part of the solution by making sure that you're a consumer and not just somebody who is consuming. So there are things we can do. There are things that we're doing a little bit better. There's a lot more work to do, though. So you're right. You hit the nail on the head. There's got to be a different path.
Yeah, well, I agree with Scott as far as knowing how much things cost before you actually buy them. But I guess I'm going to take a little bigger view here. We're the only country in the world that has a for-profit health insurance program. I think we need to look at that. I know it's a big thing, but why is that? Well, and it is a huge reason why we pay more than anybody else. The other thing is, if you look at all our best allies around the world, name them: Israel, Great Britain, France, Italy, Japan, they all have one-payer systems. They're not perfect. You know, I think healthcare programs across the world probably have their struggles. But I think it's time for the United States and the state of Wisconsin to really address this issue, because it's just so out of control. You know, so at a national level, I would like to see, and you said no skin in the game, people aren't paying, right? Well, I mean, for me, I got my first paycheck when I was 13 years old. I worked at the Boys Club in Milwaukee. Worked there till I was 17. And they took Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security out of my check. You know, if they could have taken a few more dollars for health care, you know, and then you're healthy for many years, you're not using it. But then when you're older and you need it more, it's there for you. I mean, it's the way it works in the rest of the world. I mean, what I see with our healthcare system here, I don't call it capitalism. I think it's vulture capitalism. When the cost of an EpiPen can double, when the cost of insulin can triple, you know, the people should go crazy over this. You know, I mean, I don't know why people aren't more upset about it. And I don't care if you're a Republican or if you're a Democrat. I mean, I think this is something that we need to address at the federal level and at the state level. You know, I know Citizen Action has done a little work on this, and they said on average, a Badger Care buy-in program would be about the premiums would be about 30% less. I don't know how that really comes out in the wash. But what I do know is we have to have a different vision with health care for our country and for our state. You know, if we start there, a system where people aren't being gouged, a system where health insurance companies aren't getting rich because other people get sick, I think those things need to be addressed. Thanks.
Thank you. Probably have time for one question. Anyone have that? And again, the candidates, I can't speak for them, but I knowing folks, I'm sure they'd be happy to speak to you privately if you have questions for our candidates. Well, again, thank everyone. Just, and I look at my friend Sylvain back there, who's actually Canadian, but loves it in Wisconsin. And he must shake his head every time we have an election because I was just reading some statistics the other day if you want to run for president, you have to have $1 billion in the bank. Well, you don't have to, but you can't be competitive if you're not. And just for fun, if you want to, it just came out a couple days ago. Just search most expensive races for 2018. And I might have the number wrong. It's probably changed since then. But I believe the U.S. Senate race in the state of Florida is now topped, it's got about 110 million, I think is what we saw. $112 million for two people to win a job that pays $174,000 a year. Now that's actually obviously a good salary, but that's a lot. And those of you that are mathematicians, that return on your equity isn't there is none. But so obviously it is important. Again, we'd like to thank our sponsors. Certainly we congratulate Heart of Wisconsin Chamber of Commerce and their staff for 70 years. Not that you guys were there 70 years, but 70 years of Heart of Wisconsin. Also our breakfast sponsors are Verso Corporation, just right up the road here, Heartland Farms, and also Domtar, just that way. So again, thank you, and appreciate it, and certainly get out and vote, no matter who you vote for, but that's a lot of people gave a lot of things, including their lives, so you could do that. So that's my own personal opinion. So thank you, thanks for being here, and thank you also for Central Wisconsin Media for filming this today. Have a good rest of the day.